Hello! So today we are taking a quick look at the Cessna 152 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. This may look like the standard Cessna 152, but it is not. This is a modified version of the 152 that has been improved with all kinds of upgrades for realism by a team led by WBSim and JPLogistics. So this is a free download from FlightSim.2, so just go and search for a WBSim and it will pop up. And once you install it, it actually creates a new aircraft in your hangar in the flight simulator, so it doesn't replace the existing Textron Cessna 152. It gives you a brand new one, or a whole range of them actually, with different options such as the covers over the wheels and a range of different liveries as well. So let's go and jump inside and see where the differences lie. So at first glance this looks very similar to the out-of-the-box Cessna. You can kind of start to see some differences in the ADF. Where the huge differences are, obviously everything now works, so all the breakers work, all the levers and switches all work, and they operate and affect the aircraft in the appropriate way. The other thing you will discover is when you turn the master battery on, it's not going to all light up like a Christmas tree. You're going to have to go around each of the instruments using its switches properly to power things up. So we'll see, I'll go through that with you in a moment and do that, and we'll get the aircraft up and running and take it for a flight. The flight model as well has been improved and made more accurate with reference from real 152 pilots and instructors. So they've given it a lot of input. There's also a lot of options around putting a payload in, and we'll have a look at that in a moment, because one of the major things is there's a tablet now which gives us some of these extra options. So in line with everything working as you would expect, the doors now work, the windows work, and they operate and affect the sound as you would imagine they should, and that's both sides by the way, so you know it all works nicely. So let's go and open this tablet and have a look at it. So the tablet inside the aircraft has different sections for lots of different things, and here's the primary difference, is we can swap out a lot of the hardware and improve it with more modern hardware. So we can have an autopilot in the 152 at last. So if we go and switch on the autopilot, it has appeared at the bottom of the stack here, and we get the heading bug knob. So we've actually replaced the compass, yeah, with a modified version. Yeah, can you see that happen? Also we can switch on distance measuring equipment, which appears over here. So when you're doing radio navigation you can use that obviously. We can replace the ADF, so we've got an old 1960s ADF set over here. We can replace that with a modern digital equivalent. We can also replace the transponder with the modern digital equivalent. And we can replace the clock in the middle of the cockpit with an exhaust gas temperature gauge, which is quite cool for looking after the engine. If we go and look in maintenance, we have consumables now, so we can change the battery, we can refill the oil, and we can monitor engine health and repair it if we need to. In settings, it has state saving built in, so per aircraft in the hangar the state is remembered. So you have to leave the aircraft in the state you wish to find it. Excuse me. So this is a bit of a game changer. So if you go and stop halfway through a flight and then go and spawn on the ground somewhere, the engine will be running. So it will remember even to that level, not just switch positions, but the full state of the aircraft will be remembered. So you can turn on realism as well, so the engine obviously is going to have all kinds of things that will go wrong with it, like fouling the plugs and shock and things like that. So we're not going to go into too much depth with that, but it's just, you know, for people that want the aeroplane to react in the way a real one does, then this all suddenly plays into their hands. We can show the pilot and co-pilot if we wish to, we'll leave them off. And on the exterior we have got a number of static elements that we can show if we want to play games with doing screenshots. So we can have the covers on the engine and the pitot tube and the chocks on the wheels. So let's come back away from that, remove all of that. We get good control in the tablet as well of payload. So just to give you some idea what I hinted at earlier, if we put some baggage weight in and look around behind us, we can see there's Oh, we can move the seats as well, by the way, which is kind of a bit of a nice to have. We can adjust them. But if we move around the cockpit, you can see you get a variety of different boxes appear according to the weight of the payload that you have selected. We'll leave that in with a small amount of payload. Okay, so let's go and hide the tablet and have a look at flying the aircraft and see how all these systems work together. So we go and turn on the... Well, first off, I've noticed this is saved state and I had not put it back. So normally when you leave the aircraft you would have had the fuel stopcock off, and I've just turned it back on, so we have fuel to the engine. We're going to go and turn on the batteries, and you'll notice straight away the power has come up on the autopilot. It doesn't actually have an on-off switch, it's wired directly to the battery, but you can see it's full boot up sequence, which is quite cool. And then it's looking for a confirmation of the barometric pressure. So we'll press B in the simulator to get the altimeter to correct itself, and then we'll press the baro button on the autopilot, and it's confirming itself there. So it's got again, this is state saving. It remembered I was using a cruise level of 3,500 feet while I was testing this earlier. So we'll go back down to 1,500 with this. And we will... Oh, actually, it won't make any difference to us at the moment. We'll just leave it as it is. Notice it's saying alert. That's because we're within 1,000 feet of that height. Okay, so let's go and get the engine up and running, shall we? So we can... I've already got the mixture on rich, because the lever on my joystick is... or on my quadrant is doing that. So we're going to open the throttle slightly. We're going to prime the engine a few times, and then we are going to turn on the beacon lights are on, and we're going to go and start the engine. Now notice I had to turn that to start a few times, or hold it there essentially. Sometimes it won't start straight away. It depends on the weather and atmospheric pressure, all sorts of things, and the state of the engine itself, as to, you know, how quickly you can get it started. So then we'll go and turn on our nav lights, we'll turn on our taxi lights, we'll turn on the pitot heat, we'll turn on the alternator now, and now we can go around and switch on some of these other instruments. So we'll go and turn on the transponder, we'll go and turn the knobs on the nav radios and the comm radios, and come over to this side of the cockpit, and we can see there's the on switch for the ADF, the modern one. There's a little flick switch for the DME. We're pretty much good to go now. Okay, all we're going to do today is a very short circuit and do a little bit of maybe some tumbling. We'll see how we get on to see how the flight model behaves. I have a little fly in it this morning and was pleasantly surprised at just how good it is now. Okay, so come off the parking brake, move flaps to takeoff position, open the engine gently, so because it's now modelled realistically, you can flood the engine. So if you go and dump the throttle wide open, depending on the temperature of the engine and all kinds of other factors at the time you do it, you can get yourself into quite a lot of trouble quite quickly. So you do need to kind of look after the aircraft now. But this has absolutely transformed the 152. I mean, just adding the autopilot itself is a game changer, because it means you can do longer flights without having to be so present. Okay, so we're at runway 24. We're accelerating, and we're just coming up to 50 or 60 knots, so we rotate. You can see there's a small crosswind today. As we climb out, we're going to come back off the throttle slightly, because you will notice we were just off the green area of the RPM. So we're going to raise the flaps. Holding about 700 feet a minute climb at the moment. Coming up to 1,000 feet a minute. We'll look to get to about 1,500 feet. And then we'll turn to 60 degrees for the reciprocal of the runway direction. It's a bit of a crosswind, but nothing too bad. So yeah, it's just, I think it's wonderful having all these new toys to play with, to be honest. So I'm just going to trim the elevators a little bit so I'm not giving so much backstick pressure to maintain the climb. Just coming up to 1,500 feet, so we'll begin the left turn. We've got turn coordinator down here, so we can keep an eye on it. Just gone through 1,500 feet, so we're levelling out. It's quite turbulent out there today. So again, we're just seeing today how it behaves. Once we're on the downwind leg, we'll get a bit more height. So I'm going to start climbing already. So I want to show you something about its behaviour, which is quite interesting. Okay, so there's our reciprocal of the runway direction. So you can see the airfield's just down here. If we scoot sideways, there's the runway we just took off from. Okay, I'll press F to centre us up in the cockpit. Maybe press space so we can see what's going on. So we'll do a stall test to begin with. So engine pulled back to idle, feeding in more and more backstick. There goes the stall warning, and it stalls pretty much in a straight line. It's trying to drop a wing a little bit, but we could actually fight it. The thing that I think is more interesting, if I go full throttle, we'll get some airspeed up first before we do this. This is going to be interesting. I want to get about 3,000 feet. We're going to tumble on purpose. I found a way of making the Cessna 152 reliably tumble. And normally you wouldn't do this because it would rip the airframe to bits, but we're going to do it just for testing's sake. This is a simulator after all, just to show you the behaviour. So we're just coming up to 3,000 feet. Okay, so if we force this into a kind of a corkscrew, we won't lose control. We can always get back out. Okay, so let's go back to 60 degrees just to make sure we don't get lost in terms of where the airport is around us. So we'll just level out and accelerate, just coming back up to 3,000 feet. Okay, so we're going to roll inverted. There we go. I've let go of the controls. Notice that the aeroplane is straightening itself out. So I came off the throttle there. So if we went full aileron and full negative stick, once we were inverted, we can make the aeroplane tumble, which is quite common actually with a lot of planes if they are realistically modelled. There's some of the fighter jets, if you do that with them, you get into an unrecoverable tumble. But most trainers and GA aircraft will just recover themselves if you let go of everything. Obviously they need altitude to do it. Obviously because this is so light as well, it doesn't have the momentum to tumble out of control, and it will fall nose down because it's nose heavy, because that's where the engine is. Okay, so let's go and come back in towards an approach. So we're just watching the airfield. Just holding on to 80 knots at the moment. You can see the runway. We're a little bit high at the moment, but we can fix that on approach. So I'm dropping the flaps. So let's see how this behaves with a side slip. So we're lined up, but we are too high, yeah? So we're going to force the aircraft sideways, and we can side slip an awful long way, look. So far that the pillar is in our way. Obviously we're coming down like an elevator now, which is quite cool. Obviously it's quite dangerous if you don't keep on top of it. So yeah, this improved Cessna 152 is an absolute game changer. It flies wonderfully, by the way. It's being thrown around a little bit, but nothing you can't control, and that's the whole point of it. You're in control. So it feels much more like you're flying. Okay, raise the flaps and we'll pull off the runway onto the grass. There is a grass strip alongside us, so we're not going to worry too much. You see there's a painted line which we are going to go and join and follow it back into the airfield. So yeah, the options that this add-on gives you in terms of the cockpit configuration and the realism of the systems is just absolutely fantastic. Notice we were tumbling around all over the place, so what I'm going to do, we're looking at, yeah, look, we've drifted off quite a lot on the gyro compass down here, so if we press D we can correct it. So that's been simulated accurately as well, that this was drifting following the various tumbles that we did, which is absolutely what you would expect. Even the wallowing of the aircraft when going across the rough ground is very good. So yeah, suddenly the 152 is new again, and it's a lot more realistic than it was. Obviously I've not really delved here into causing failures with the engine or anything like that, but obviously if you go and fly and misbehave, or don't manage the aircraft correctly, then obviously you can cause damage to it now, to the to the engine. Okay, parking brake on and pull the mixture which will kill the engine, and then we can just go around and switch things back off again. Alternator off, ignition off. Remember, we have to put things back, otherwise they won't be where we wanted them. So master power off, fuel shut off. And one thing I didn't do, which again this is something you're going to have to do now, is go and turn the various switches off where they exist. So we pulled power, but we didn't physically go and switch things off, so we've gone and done that now. So yeah, there we go, the Cessna 152. Let's just go and open those doors so we can have a look from outside. If we move the view around, they've also stopped the clipping, so we can use the movement of the pilot using the keys on the keyboard to move outside of the aircraft. So there you go. It's very, very nicely done. So this was, if we just go back and have another look, the WBSim JPLogistics add-on for the Cessna 152 in Microsoft Flight Simulator, which makes it a lot more feature-rich and a lot more realistic. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.